Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. Welcome back, Conscious Investors. Today, I am absolutely thrilled. I even went off schedule. I usually only record on Thursdays once a month, but I was like, I really know that Mauricio is going to add so much value to fledgling, passive investors. You guys are getting your feet wet and you're trying to figure things out. And Mauricio is one of the first real estate attorneys I ever heard at the beginning of my journey, and it left a forever impression. And I reached out, and he's just so generous. He's always adding value to the community. We're going to get into that. But first, without ado, Mauricio, it's such a joy to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me, Julie. Really excited to speak with you for the next little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely amazing. And just as a heads up, going to live events, in-person events is absolutely powerful. And so if you haven't already, checked out some events for this year to say, hey, I'm at the beginning of my journey, I need to go to some events. The event I met Mauricio and heard him speak at was Real Estate Guy's Secrets of Successful Syndication. I always stumble upon that.
It's a mouthful, right?
It's such a mouthful, but I highly recommend checking out that event. But even more approachable right now, something that you can do immediately. It's not in person, but let's just do a quick front end plug for the Real Estate Syndication Live, because it's super cool.
Thanks. I just started doing this. It's been six weeks, but I wanted to get a community together of syndicators. So we started a real estate syndicator community, and part of that is a Real Estate Syndicator Live that we do every Wednesday. And it's just usually me or a guest babbling for 10, 15 minutes, and then we open it up to questions. So it's really an interactive live. So unlike just a straight interview where you just get to listen in, you actually get to bring your questions and ask them. And not only on the topic at hand, whatever topic we pick, but then after that, I just stick around and you can just ask me whatever's on your mind. And so far we've gotten all of them. At some point we may have to start cutting it off, but some of them go for a couple hours, but I'm really enjoying it. As we were talking before the show, just gives me a ton of energy. And I just love the energy and the feedback that I get from those lives. So really enjoying doing those.
It's really nice when you get like that direct, immediate, it's like such a dopamine release, right?
100%.
Like, oh my gosh, this is just so amazing. I know I'm adding value. I just solved this. It's nothing for you. You have the knowledge, but for someone else, they're like, oh, the mystery is solved.
It's so much fun because, I've been doing this for 22 years now. So the legal piece, I mean, the information is all in my head. It's not like I have to go look anything up. So I have all the sort of the legal tools, which is now fun because now you can focus on more the nuances and the structure and strategy and just kind of getting a little bit more creative as opposed to, I wonder what I can say from a legal perspective or not say it. It's all back there. So it just makes it a lot of fun to be able to help solve problems, or if somebody's in a particular situation and they give me a fact pattern, I can say, hey, well, have you thought about doing it this way or that way? Because the legal piece is already, for many years now has been, entrenched in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, you're just the walking encyclopedia. Always adding value.
It's such a small niche, right? It's like we were just talking too. It's like there's only so much. I mean, it's not like I practice a really broad. I'm very, very specific. I mean, not only is it securities laws and people who are raising capital, but even further, it's only real estate. So I don't do any non-real estate stuff. So after a while, it becomes the same legal principles pop up all the time.
All the time. And by the way, I'm just going to have you back on the show a few more times because you say niche, and my husband gives me grief over it every time for years. And I'm just like, but it's the proper pronunciation.
Oh, instead of what's the other one? Niche? Is that the other pronunciation, or what's niche or niche? Yeah, I say niche.
Yeah. No, we have it right. So, let's go ahead and dive in. And there are some typical questions that, people at the beginning of their syndication journey as passive investors face. And I'm going to throw a couple questions out there, and then I know we'll just take it from there. But you know what? Something I hear is that frustration. I have a lot of investors listening to the show right now, and they are so close to being accredited. They're like, I'm just $200,000 away, and then I'm going to throw this other part in there because I know that you and I are both conversationalists. So we'll just answer this maybe all in one, in a way. And then I had to turn away an investor Not because that investor wasn't accredited. It was a, 506B that I didn't know him. Someone else sent him to me, and I told him he's probably listening, and I won't drop his name, but I was just like, man, I'm so sorry. I can't let you in on this deal. I have to follow the law. And so a lot of times, new investors, and I wasn't turning that into a C. It was a straight
Right,
B, right?
right,
So
right.
anyhow, let's speak to these
Yeah.
new investors that really are ready to level up their game.
Well, I wish you'd reached out to me, because I think that second one, you would have been within your rights to speak with that investor and accept that investor. And so let's talk about that second one, because that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
he's
Let's talk about.
listening.
I
He's
know.
like,
So if he's
Julie.
listening, yeah, I didn't think of it that way. But for the next one, I guess. So the reason that comes up is just to kind of bring it back just a little bit to give everybody
Yeah.
context. So when you as a syndicator, Julie, you're raising capital, you have to either register that syndication with the SEC, or you have to find an exemption. That's kind of the general rule. And the rule that most people rely on is the one you were just mentioning, which is a 506B, and it's as technical as I'm going to get. But one of the prohibitions, or sort of the limitations of a 506B, is that you cannot advertise or generally solicit your deal. You have to have a relationship already. It's meant for people, your friends and family, and people already in your network. And so the vast majority of times, and that's the key, the vast majority, I would say the vast, 98.5, I made that up, but 99% of the time, you're going to rely on this concept of having what we call a pre-existing substantive relationship. So if you have a pre-existing substantive relationship with your passive investor, then you're good, because obviously you haven't generally solicited that person, you haven't advertised to that person, you've known them for a while. However, having a pre-existing substantive relation is not the exclusive way that you can show that you did not advertise and generally solicit. It is, again, by far the most common one. But the rule doesn't say that you have to have a pre-existing relationship. The rule says you cannot generally solicit or advertise. And so one of the other 0.5% or 1% of the time that's most could be used is a referral. So when somebody refers somebody to you, yes, you don't know that person from Adam, or you don't know that person at all, but you also haven't generally solicited or advertised that person, which is what the rule is really looking to think. And so if somebody actually refers somebody to you, as long as you document that person either reached out to you, or even better, probably the person referring says, hey, Julie, I just want, this is my buddy John, and he's interested, and I figured you guys can connect. You can then talk to that person, because you have not generally solicited and advertised. Now, you still want to make sure that they're sophisticated and this is kind of a suitable investment for them. So you definitely want to talk to them, but you wouldn't be violating that rule. Now, what you would be violating would be if you pay that person a referral fee. That's definitely a no-no. You can't pay that person for referring. But if somebody just says, hey, especially if it's an investor, maybe I'm an investor in one of your deals and I love it, and I'm like, hey, John, you should definitely talk to Julie, because she's amazing and she does all this great stuff. Why don't you let me make an introduction? Or maybe, hey, this particular investment isn't for me. I'm tapped out. Or hey, I don't like the asset class. I'm into something else. But hey, here's somebody else that can come. So that's been a little bit of a controversial thing, because I think most people are in your shoes, where even the most seasoned believe that that's the rule, because that's been sort of hammered into them, that they must have a pre-existing substantive relationship. But it's not the exclusive means. It's again 99% of the time. So put that aside, and let's talk about the accredited part, which is also a frustrating part. So one of the other, in a 506B, another limitation there is you can only take up to 35 non-accredited investors in that deal. And of course, there are other deals that only allow you to be accredited. So being an accredited investor, if you're a passive investor and you're really, it's interesting, because we all know people who have just tons and tons of money, and they're like the dumbest person in the room. So it seems to be unfair to be judging somebody's sophistication level and how much money they have, or how much net worth or income they make. And then we also know people who just are modest means, and can run circles around us. So the good news is, so the bad news is, as of actually about a year ago, the definition of an accredited investor was based purely on income and net worth. $1 million in net worth, excluding your primary residence. Otherwise, everybody in California was going to be accredited. And then, or have earned $200,000 the last 2 years. So in this case, 2020 and 2021. And then you have a reasonable expectation of earning that much or more this year. And if you're combining with spouse, that goes up to 300. The SEC, this has been going on since 1982. There's been a huge debate as to whether that's the right, again, whether income or net worth should be sufficient. So there was a movement, not only a movement, there was a rule that was passed that intended to expand that definition and include other things other than income. And what the goal is, and I believe it still is the goal, and in fact, we're going to find out here in the next 30 days, is that the SEC now wants to be able to provide investors the opportunity to get certified as an accredited investor, meaning they can go out there and take an exam and pass an exam and get sort of a license. It's going to be a certification from an authorized certificator, I guess is the term. And so once you pass the exam, great. Now I'm accredited, even though I don't have the net worth or liquidity. When the rule passed about a year ago, the only people that they immediately let in were investment advisors. So if you were a registered investment advisor, or you have one of these licenses, 782, 65, and you're registered with your state, then you now are accredited by definition, even though you may not have the income. And the idea was, or at least according to the rule, like over the next, I don't know, 6, 12, 18 months, they were going to start releasing or approving, authorized people to provide the courses, to give the exam, and to basically give you the certification. That hasn't happened yet. Like, I don't know what's going on. It's been a year. Well, I know what's going on. I mean, COVID and change of everything, but we haven't seen that yet, right? But it is on the agenda. They just had a huge meeting in February, the small business unit that kind of is supposedly the champion of the small business units, and they're still advocating it. Now, there's some rumblings and some rumors that they might be looking to actually increase that $1 million threshold. That $1 million threshold, again, has been there since 1982, and that's when $1 million actually was a lot of money. So just adjusted for inflation, that number is almost 3 million. I checked with a very reliable source, which was Dr. Google, and Dr. Google said that that $1 million in 82 is about 2.7 or 2.8 million dollars today. So it kind of makes sense that they may want to adjust it for inflation. And it also makes sense because if you're going to let people now be certified, the idea of just now being able to raise that limit so that not everybody just automatically gets being an accredited, but now you have to go take a course and an exam. It kind of makes sense to me. So I think that's where we're going to land, where the number is going to go higher, but you're going to have that option to go get certified. And whether that's a weekend course or a self-study or a semester, we don't know what that looks like. But I think that's good news for most. If you're really a passive investor and you really want to be involved in certain deals that you're currently excluded, well, just hang on here, and the next, hopefully the next 6 to 12 months, you'll have an avenue. You actually have an avenue right now, which we can talk about in a second, but we'll have a more realistic avenue where you can go take an exam and get certified.
Okay, and so many good things there. Kind of the alarming part of that potential change for accreditation limits that I noticed on your Facebook thread. By the way, if you are not already over on Facebook following Mauricio, you need to do that, because he has like super funny posts as well as really inspiring posts. I think your recent post about wine is now cheaper.
Oh my God.
Wine is cheaper than gas. So drink, don't drive.
Yeah, I saw that. They're talking about it, obviously because gas is so expensive, a gallon of gas, that it's more
California.
expensive. Yeah,
you're in California, where it's
I am in California. It's almost $7 down here down the street. So they're saying that the gallon of gas is more expensive than wine, and so you should drink wine. And I'm a wine guy, so I'm like, what kind of crappy wines are you guys drinking out there for $7 a bottle?
Exactly. Hey, you know what? It's a step up from $2 Chuck. Okay.
not much of a step up, but yes.
Oh my gosh. Are you enjoying this episode? Do the world a favor and help trip the algorithm by leaving a review so that this content reaches many others. And now back to the show. So one of your posts caught my eye, and it was about that accreditation limit. And it was like, whoa, they could, and I was alarmed when I saw that. Like, oh my gosh, what if they did raise that to a $10 million minimum to be accredited? And you were talking about this very, nuance of, hey, 1982 was a really long time. I was in kindergarten in 1982, like that was a while ago, people.
Right.
So, it does make sense. But, if you were, no crystal balls, but if you had a crystal ball, do you think they're going to land more if they raise that limit at that $2-3 million?
Yeah, I think they'll land probably in that 3 to 5 range. I wouldn't be surprised if I was a betting man. I would say, and I had to give the Price is Right, like I had to give an actual number. I'd say 3 million. It's kind of a round number, and it's about what the inflation adjusted to 82. That would be my guess. In addition to now, allowing you, so it's almost good news for non-accrediteds, because they now get the certification part. It's bad news, obviously, for people who used to be accredited because they had over $1 million, but have less than 3. And then I have no idea what the income requirement. I don't know what that looks like adjusted for inflation. So we'll see what that does.
Well, this just got me thinking, what would that do to the mix of 506B and 506C out there? Would we start to see, you think, an influx of 506B offerings?
Yeah,
I wonder.
yeah, I mean, most of my, it's interesting. Most of my clients, and again, I make a lot of statistics up on the spot. Probably about,
Dr. Google's good to help.
yeah. So, probably 2/3 of our clients use 506B, which is again, we're in this little niche, right? So our world is different from, if you look at the macro world, 90%, I think 92% of the deals only accept accredited investors, and only 8% for us, it's more like 2/3 allow non-accrediteds and 1/3. So you're right. If now there's less of a pool of accrediteds, then maybe that number will start going up, and people will be, shy away from the 506E, or would be even better, which you alluded to briefly at the beginning, is they would start doing both, which is also a brand new rule where they could start doing a 506B, get all their passive non-accredited investors, into the deal, stop, flip, and then finish up the raise under a 506C. That might be a little bit more prevalent moving forward if that does pass.
Let's talk about that for a little bit, because since it is the newest, flashiest thing out there. And
Yeah.
for you, it's got to be kind of fun because it's like, oh, something new to interact with.
Yeah.
You just added.
Yeah, sorry, go. Yeah.
I think, I was just going to say, I think a lot of the investors, that are listening, that are in that newer stage, this is healthy understanding to just lay some tracks so that if they see this come up, they're not alarmed, or, oh no, I've heard about this.
Yeah, and also if you're a passive investor and you're non-accredited, and you sort of you talk to a sponsor and say, no, this is a 506C, I'm sorry, you might suggest this to the sponsor, because a lot of attorneys still don't know this. I was actually so shocked, as you saw in my post, that when I first saw it, that it took me a while to finally, I had to do a big deep dive, and I refrained from talking about it until I really made sure that I was reading what I was reading correctly, because it was really like, really?
You're like, what were they doing out on Cap Hill when they wrote this? This is not in line with their normal thinking.
I know. And so I saw that, I'm like, what? And so anyway, I did the deep dive, and then I talked to a couple of my, my colleagues. It's always nice to have colleagues where you kind of, bounce ideas around, and then we all decided, yeah, that's our reading as well. And so since I released, I think the first post that I did was probably a month ago, or a month and a half ago. And since then I've just kind of run with it. And everybody who didn't know about it is like, yep, no, you're right, I read it too. And I'm with you. That's definitely something we can do. So yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. So what does that look like? Just for, I read your post because it really caught my eye as I was heading into a 506C raise. I was like, maybe, so.
Yeah. So in the old days, you wouldn't be able to do that, because if you started raising under a 506B exemption, right, which does not allow you to advertise, and then decided to, like, hey, you know what, I want to advertise, now let me just stop and go start doing another raise under 506C and start bringing in, then the SEC would integrate those. They would say, no, you're just trying to get around the rules. They're really, even though you say they're two offerings, they're really just one, and we're going to integrate them, and therefore you've violated all the rules. So we couldn't have done that before. But now the SEC has come out and specifically said that they will not combine those. So if you start an offering that allows, that prohibits advertising, so kind of like a 506B, do all that fully compliant with 506B, right? So all the rules that we kind of talked a little bit about, but no advertising, generally having a pre-existing relationship or maybe a referral, but you haven't advertised, haven't generally solicited, take no more than 35 non-accredited, kind of do exactly what the letter of the law, right? And then in the middle of your rate, if you have time, because that's, you may not have time to do this, but if you have enough time, that you could then say, today, I'm going to terminate my 506B offering, no more 506B, no more money's coming in, no more documents coming in, no more, like, this is it, we're done. And starting tomorrow, I'm going to continue raising money for this exact same deal, but now I'm going to switch over to a new exemption, which is 506C. And then moving forward, now I comply fully with Rule 506E, which would allow me to advertise. However, I would be limited to accredited investors only. And I would have to take what's called reasonable steps to verify that they're accredited. So I can't just take their word for it. I would have to get tax returns or CPA verification letters or whatever the process is to verify. But as long as you're doing that and complying, it's almost like that proverbial Chinese wall. As long as you're complying with 506B when you're doing a 506B, and then you're complying fully with 506C, then the SEC says that's fine. We're not going to integrate those two. So that's, yeah, it's been a really valuable tool that not too many people are, I think people aren't there yet, but we've probably done, I think we're up to maybe 6 or 7 of those now that people have done, and but it's not super prevalent. And I think mostly because people don't know about it, and not everybody reads my posts every day.
You're like, wait a second, how is this person? We were talking about that off air. It's hilarious. But I think that you're going to see a whole host of that happening. But I mean, 6 of them since you made your post a month ago. No, I'm kidding.
And one of them actually didn't. So you don't have to do it either. So you could actually just prepare for that. I got a client who prepared for that, did his 506B, and ended up raising all the money under B. So they didn't have to go to the 506. It's not like you have to do that if you decide to go that route, but at least you have that optionality. And it works really. I do have clients who call and say, look, I really want to do a 506C, but I also have a bunch of investors that are non-accredited that have been with me for years and years and years. I don't want to leave them, suddenly abandon them and leave them out. So this is a good solution there, because you can get all your non-accredited and prior investors, as long as it's no more than 35, and you have that relationship with them. And then once they all come in, just kind of literally flip.
It's so cool, because honestly, that's exactly how I felt with the 506C raise. Was I have all these, investors that want in and are waiting for that next opportunity. And, my own personal, position is like, I like to be really responsible with what I'm doing. So my focus is my focus. Like, I'm going to be 100% and 10% here on what I'm doing. So sorry, guys, you're going to have to wait a little bit, because I got to focus over here and get this ship lifted off into space.
Right. No, 100%.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. This is so off topic, but we're having a little bit of fun. And we were talking about the guitar in your background. And I think that you should add a little, this is my squirrely kind of mind sometimes.
I love it.
You could add crystal ball moments. You know how we all wish that we had crystal balls that we could, in this industry, but that's your great way of being able to get around that. And you'd be like, crystal ball moment. And it's joking, and you can say whatever you want.
I'll be the Adam Sandler of securities attorneys, where if I want to say something like you said, crystal ball or witty, I can just bust out the guitar with some basic chords and bang out a tune.
Yeah, exactly.
off key. I can't sing. I can barely play guitar. So that I don't know if that'll be painful. I think for a lot of people.
I think it'd be really, really funny and bring a lot of humor to a topic that can really stress a lot of people out.
Yeah, I did do one thing though, that one of my Ask Mauricio shows, when I got my new puppy, I got a little English cream golden retriever. I had her because I mentioned it, I think, in a prior episode, that I was going to go pick her up. So I actually did my intro with my puppy in my lap and stuff. That was kind of fun. And so
cuteness. That's like cuteness overload when you have a puppy there. It's like, what?
Yeah, a little clickbait there. Oh, puppy, let me see.
Exactly.
Talking about accredited investors. What?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'll take us back on topic, but I do like to have fun in everything that I do. So let's go back to that pre-existing relationship. I am going to harp on it a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's that investor is going to be like, Julie, why didn't you reach out to Mauricio? But and that actually makes sense. The first passive investment I participated in, literally the intro call got bumped up because I knew we had to do that. I'm like, oh gosh. And their schedule had been booked out, and it got bumped up because they had a webinar that night. Someone we both know calls me, messaged me, hey, I got a webinar now. Can we move our time?
Right.
Thank God we did, because that investment has been fantastic. But I always felt like, oh, we just got in by the hair of our chinny chin type situation. If you're talking to these young sophisticated investors who are just finding their way, what's some advice that you would have on making sure that they have those relationships, the benefits of those, and any other advice to our new passive investors?
Yeah, look, I'm a passive investor as well. So, and a lot of the syndicators, I would say most syndicators are also passive investors, because they're getting their, especially when they exit a deal, they got a big chunk of cash, then they're usually investing in other people's deals as well. So being a passive investor has a ton of benefits. You get, obviously, the economies of scale. You're being able to participate in a huge, apartment building if you're doing apartments, and benefit from the bonus depreciation, everything that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to benefit if you just bought a single family or a duplex. And so a lot of great benefits. The nice thing about being a passive investor is you don't usually have to do too much work, because that's the whole point. You're passive, you write the check, and then you just mailbox money. However, my big piece of advice here, would be the work the only work you really should be doing, and the main work you're doing is those relationships, because your main job as a passive investor is to vet the sponsor first and foremost. So having those relationships ahead of time makes a ton of sense, as opposed to you just met somebody yesterday and now they're asking you to put $100,000 or $50,000 investment. So having that relationship helps there, but you really want to do your due diligence on the sponsor, make sure that they are qualified, that they've done this before, that they can actually execute on the pretty pitch deck brochure that they gave you. That's one thing, is to put one together, one to actually execute it. So whether they or somebody on their team, and that's another important part, that they have a team, it's just another one man or one woman show. So doing your due diligence on the sponsor first and foremost, and then once you're comfortable with the sponsor, once that particular deal comes in, do your due diligence on that particular deal. Now, you're not going to have time to go, because you're passive, you're not going to go fly down and do, but really take a deep look into the numbers. Does it really match with your personal investment philosophy? Does just that's really the work you should be doing. And then, of course, once you've made the decision, yes, this is a good investment for me, it matches my values, and you write the check, well, then the good news is you can go home and sit on your couch and, you don't have to worry about it. But, and you get the economies of scale. So once you've done the due diligence on the sponsor and you feel really comfortable and they're performing for you, then when you go back to the sponsor, you obviously don't have to keep doing that over and over again, which is one of the reasons a lot of passive investors keep investing, as long as they're doing well with a particular sponsor, because they feel comfortable, they know, like, and trust them, which is always the key. So, but that's really your main job as a passive investment, is just ensuring that the sponsor can execute on the pretty brochure that they put together for you.
Okay, I'm going to give you permission. I've never done this before, but I think this will be fun.
Oh,
I know, because
I'm stressing
already. I know you can handle anything. No, is there speed bumps ahead? I was going to say, like, rant moment. Are there any things that you're seeing out there that you're like, oh my gosh, can you all just please stop? Like, this is not wise and prudent. Is there the red flags where you're just like,
oh my goodness, that's a 3-hour show right there. I just did this a couple days ago on our live. So probably the two biggest, oh my God, what are you guys doing, is number one, kind of we alluded earlier, is people bringing in co-sponsors or getting referrals and paying them compensation for doing that. For some reason, or not for some reason, a lot of people are doing it, so people get really frustrated because they're like, wait a minute, this person's doing it, like, and that's an unfair advantage, because they're being able to, like, go contract or work with a money raiser, and then they bring in a bunch of money, which is what they're looking for, and they're just paying them. And I think they do realize, they've been told, because I've been harping on it for a while, but you can't do that, right? So if you're a quote unquote money raiser, then you have to be licensed, just like you have to be licensed to be an attorney or a doctor. It's a licensed activity. So you need a broker-dealer license to go raise money for others. But that's probably by far I think these days, that's probably the biggest red flag I see, or getting paid referrals. And then the other one is just the social media advertising, right? So people who are doing 506Bs, as we talked earlier, they're prohibited from advertising. They can't go on social media, or go on podcasts, or put on their website information about their current deal, or really anything that conditions the market, gets people excited about it. And yet people are doing it. And it's been interesting, because every time I see a post like that, I'll take a screenshot of it, and then I'll blur it out, and then I'll probably share it at some point with a presentation I do. But there's just a lot of it out there. And some of them are egregious. Some of them, because a lot of the posts, you can't tell whether they're doing a 506B or a 506C. So that's always my caveat. I'm like, look, I don't know if this might be okay. But some of them literally will tell you this is a 506B, or this is I am on this one, it's a special one because I'm accepting non-accredited. And you're like, oh my goodness, this person is literally advertising their deal on Facebook or LinkedIn. And of course, that'll blow that 506B exemption. And going back to my original thing, which is where you have to register your syndication or find an exemption. When you blow that exemption, you're back to having an unregistered offering. And so now you've got to come up, either try and find another exemption, or you have to register it. And so that's the issue. But those are probably the two biggest by far. And it's not a new thing. It's been going on for many, many years now. And, once things start to, level off a little bit, or maybe go down, and when investors aren't getting their money back and start complaining, I think that's when it's going to all come to the forefront.
No joke, you scared the bejesus out of me at that secret syndication, like my first event, and it felt like a collegiate level course. I'm just like, I was that person. Now a lot of the times events is more networking and
Yes.
going deeper into
Yes.
the relationships, but
Yes.
I was that person that was just like eyes wide, taking in everything, taking copious notes, and like,
Yeah.
don't advertise on social media. I'm going to die if I do this.
It's
I
like
don't
drinking
wanna
from a
wear
fire
orange.
hose. It's that event's so much value in that event, and those guys do a really good job putting it on. And so, yeah, it's like literally if it's the first one, and that's why one of the questions we always ask at that event is like, how many of you have been to this event before? And usually half of the room raises their hand because it's so much the first time. People keep coming back for a second, and then like you said, the relationships and the networking is always really I think that's the number one benefit from going to a live event, is not necessarily the content that's put out there, but the chance to interact with the speakers, interact with the attendees. That sort of live thing is something you can't replicate on any Zoom or virtual thing.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that we're back to live events and we can get together, because I was at Best Ever in February and it was just so phenomenal to see people in person. Oh my gosh, this is the real deal. Wow. Mauricio, you're just phenomenal. I love that you actually do bring a lot of zest to a topic that can either cause people to fear and sweat bullets similar to their CPA, or just get bored out of their mind. You make it interesting, and I appreciate that. And so again, if you are not already connected up on LinkedIn or on Facebook or wherever Mauricio is going to point you to, make sure that you need to go connect up on the social platforms for sure, because his content is really relevant, whether you're a passive investor or, you're an active investor. It's going to, just keep you drip in all of those really important things in a really fun way at the same time. That's it. I love it when we can mix, business and pleasure. It's like, because the brain, and the brain works best and learns best when you're actually in a positive mood and having fun.
100%.
Gosh. All right, Mauricio, where do you want to send people? What should they do if they want to get in touch with you or hire you as their attorney? And
I would definitely, if you guys aren't on LinkedIn, LinkedIn's just an amazing platform. I probably spend most of my time on LinkedIn posting 2 or 3 times a day on just whatever my thoughts are. And then my YouTube channel, I really try and put a lot of videos on there that can educate. And then I'd love for you guys to join me on our live. It's our live is every Wednesday that we do, and we pick it, like I said, we pick a topic, and then it's just open Q&A, and that's at my website, mauriciorauld.com/live, and you can just register for that, and then just get as much value as you can.
You will grow, and you will have fun growing. And maybe if enough people mention it, maybe he'll play the guitar a few chords like Adam Sandler.
I will start practicing.
Start practicing now. Thanks again, Mauricio. And to all of you amazing listeners, make sure you leave a comment. Let us know what you gained from this. Leave an honest review, whatever it is. Drop your review, drop your comments, and make sure you go connect up. You got to go to a Wednesday live. They're fun, and you'll learn a ton. Until next time, live big, love bigger. Feeling alone? Disconnected? Conscious investors often feel alone or disconnected because of their unique perspective and desire to expand their thinking. But the journey of a lifetime isn't meant to be solo or forged by grit alone. Join the Conscious Investor community on Facebook. Link arms, exchange ideas, and expand your thinking on finances, relationship, and community. Join the Conscious Investor group on Facebook today.